I rise with reverence to address the distinguished members of this venerable chamber. I extend my sincere salutations to my esteemed colleagues and also to those observing the proceedings. Allow me to convey, Mr. Speaker, my sincerest regards also to my beloved family, my dear friends, my cherished constituents, and also to my wonderful staff at the Ministry of Health, Wellness, and Social Services, as well as all the stakeholders who work with us every day to realize improved healthcare outcomes for the good people of Dominica. Foremost, Mr. Speaker, I am compelled to express my gratitude to the exceptional people of my beloved constituency for bestowing in me the trust and the belief to represent them in this venerable chamber. Mr. Speaker, as the custodian of the Ministry of Health, Wellness, and Social Services, Mr. Speaker, I am honored to be here to present on this upcoming budget 2024-2025. Mr. Speaker, in my presentation, you will hear clearly of our plans, our programs to fortify the Ministry of Health, Wellness, and Social Services, to improve our delivery of various services, and also to collaborate with various stakeholders and colleagues to realize the best healthcare outcomes for our people. Enthusiastically, I look forward to engaging with all our stakeholders who help us in implementing and upholding our solemn and deep commitment to deliver better services. Mr. Speaker, I must express my unwavering support to the 2024-2025 national budget. Before delving into the essential details of this financial plan, I must extend my deepest congratulations to Dr. the Honorable Irvin McIntyre for a job well done. This budget, Mr. Speaker, epitomizes the values of transparency, of optimism, Mr. Speaker, and it certainly confronts the challenges that our people, all our people face on a daily basis. It certainly, Mr. Speaker, feels and senses the pulse of all our people, the farmers, the fisher folks, those in education, the teachers, nurses, doctors, of everyone, Mr. Speaker. And most certainly, this is a budget that responds with deliberate action to the issues that our good people are being confronted with on a day-to-day basis. Mr. Speaker, allow me, if you may, to respond to some of the assertions that were made by the opposition leader in waiting, Mr. Speaker. I really hope he does not have to wait too long and get too many grays, Mr. Speaker. But I certainly learned quite a few things this morning. I did not know Rasta like Santo, so this was new to me. This was a lesson forced upon me this morning, Mr. Speaker. A fairy tale that was weaving, Mr. Speaker, so I must address some of these innuendos. Where do I begin? This is a tall order, certainly. And hence the reason why I asked to refer to my notes. At the airport, locals are not employed when we have 150 locals employed at the international airport site. And Mr. Speaker, we were there recently, we saw it for ourselves. Many of the truck drivers, heavy equipment operators are locals. Not casual laborers, Mr. Speaker. And he claims that this is in his constituency, but he doesn't see and he doesn't know. Help me, Mr. Speaker. Help me. Climate change is not the greatest threat to us in Dominica, but instead it's the government being allowed to do whatever they want to do. I had to think about this one and reflect upon that deeply, Mr. Speaker. And I asked myself, who elected this government? It's the people. So if the people are the ones electing the government, then what he really wants to say, the greatest threat to Dominica are the people of Dominica. That is what he really wanted to say, Mr. Speaker. We have to listen with intent to capture the underlying messages that they are giving us, Mr. Speaker. We have not had development in Dominica. When we have seen infrastructure development that we have never seen before in our lifetime. Sometimes I take it for granted when I think of what under the Kinfield Cliff was like. It was almost like being on a carousel, Mr. Speaker. But it's easy to forget because when a government is used to excellence, Mr. Speaker, you can sometimes take the hard work for granted. All the main roads in Dominica, Mr. Speaker, have been transformed or are being transformed. $126 million road project in the East Coast with variations to ensure that we can respond to all the issues related to vulnerability. Mr. Speaker, how can we neglect that? How can we step into this venerable chamber with casual arrogance and just say things? We need to put this in the standing orders, Mr. Speaker, to guide us about treating with these matters. Mr. Speaker, social safety nets. I'm happy that he recovered later and addressed many of the social safety nets, the uniform and the books and the shoes and the transportation. He tried to make a comeback because when he went into deeper reflection, maybe that's when the Rasta in him, sincere man, came out a little bit. It said the truth for a little while. So I appreciated the truth on that by acknowledging that this government, this Labour Party administration, has had the most stellar track record of social safety nets in the history of governance in Dominica, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Dominica is a place where we can realize dreams. It is a place. Because if it wasn't, what are you all doing here? Are you telling people that Dominica is not a place to realize your dreams, to discourage them from being home so that you can benefit from all of Dominica? Is that the underlying message? I listened to you well, and I took notes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to refer to my notes, my copious notes, Mr. Speaker. We are the smallest economy in the OECD, yes, and to seem to suggest that nothing is happening because we are so small. And that's why every time and time again, the Prime Minister keeps on saying we are punching above our weight. And that we shall do, that we shall continue to do, Mr. Speaker. We will punch. We'll keep punching. We will never give up. But what I sometimes wonder, if we're so small, we're so insignificant, we lack hope and we lack purpose. But how is it that we're able to recover from Hurricane Maria faster than even what IMF and World Bank and all these organizations anticipated for us? How did that happen? Dominicans know the truth, Mr. Speaker. We all know the truth. And that is why he ended with electoral reform, because that is his strategy, Mr. Speaker, of trying to get the Dominica Labour Party out of office. That is all it is. Because the strategy can't be about the people, because the people see, they feel, they hear, they know, and they continue to demonstrate time and time again their deep, sincere, and profound belief in the administration of the affairs of this country. Mr. Speaker, to seem to suggest that a 3.2% economic growth, worldwide that is, as compared to a 4.7% growth in Dominica is insignificant, and it seems to be distorting the truth or deceiving people from the realities on the ground. We know things are hard, Mr. Speaker, and that is why we created a budget that addresses the urgent needs of the people, immediate needs, while we have continued to address the issues that are medium term and long term. We continue to do that. But to act that the report of the IMF is misleading, that is dangerous, Mr. Speaker. That suggests to you what type of government they would be if ever they were to take the reins of administration. They would dispel every single report of substance, Mr. Speaker, for their own purposes and intents. But despite what these numbers say, we understand clearly that the growth in the economy in large measure does not correlate directly to and immediately to every single person in the society. We understand, and we have responded in large measure time and time again. That's why last year from September, you had many people all across the public service through the restructuring benefited from 6 through 13% increases in their salaries. How does that not make a difference? Let's be honest with ourselves, Mr. Speaker. And we continue to do that and invest in our people time and time again with the new restructuring attempts and plans for nursing and others as well, Mr. Speaker. How are we not addressing the issues of the people? Mr. Speaker, the truth is, I heard the leader in waiting speak to Margot a lot. Waiting. Spoke to Margot a lot. He referenced it quite a bit, Mr. Speaker. And they have about 3 from Margot as well. And there are many things that they're asking for Margot. And I want things for Margot, Mr. Speaker. I'm sensitive to the people of Margot. My father is from Atkinson, but they built their home in Margot. But the truth is, in Margot, they have not had leadership in over 2 decades. And that is the problem. It's not the government that's the problem. It's lack, scarcity, absence. It's void. It's replete of leadership, Mr. Speaker. That's the problem. And you would think that there would be a realization of that, and you would expect better. But it's still absent. And even when the member from Margot admits that maybe he needs some help with representation, instead, in his efforts to recruit help in Margot, he recruits 2 Judas Iscariots to help him in the dispensation of his duties. Mr. Speaker, he spoke of the coffee plant. Of course, it was a brilliant idea. Yes, it has not materialized. But I want to salute at this time the new minister, my dear friend, the member for Cottage, who has made it his personal responsibility to get this operational. And I have been so advised, Mr. Speaker, that all the roasters are on island, the coffee roasters. And not only that, they are already in the plant, Mr. Speaker. So something is happening. While you want us to do nothing, we will be doing many things, okay? Mr. Speaker, yes, I'm grateful that he was able to read from our script and say some things that we are doing. He's trying to act like many of the assertions that he made. These ideas were born with him, they're resident with him. But Mr. Speaker, when he spoke to tourism and saying that we need to improve the sites, of course, we have to improve the sites. The Minister of Tourism is constantly preoccupied with increasing the allocation for marketing and development of sites on a daily basis. And while you can laugh all you want. You can laugh all you want. I saw when you were clapping, but your head was down. But I will say, the world will continue to give us our accolades time and time again for tourism. And Forbes, just as they did recently, because I read this article about 6 days ago, where they said that Dominica is a must-visit paradise. So I don't know anybody who wants to visit Koshani. I don't know anybody like this. Mr. Speaker, you know sometimes when somebody knows a little bit of something, but they try to act like they're expert in the thing? I heard a few moments like that. Some flashes, glimpses of like you onto something, but you didn't quite get it. This thing about landing zone, I tried to stay with the program, but I was completely lost. Because from what I understand, Mr. Speaker, that is not what we're trying to do at all, Mr. Speaker. And praise God, Mr. Speaker, this administration not trying to play God and shift no mountain anywhere, Mr. Speaker. All we're trying to do, Mr. Speaker, is address a few safety issues, Mr. Speaker. The issues of overshooting, Mr. Speaker. The issues of when it rains to address hydroplaning, Mr. Speaker. I will help him. These are the things. And not only that, the fact that we are working on a new airport, that if we can do these minor investments, that we can already start to get the attention of airlines all around the world, Mr. Speaker. That is what we are trying to do. So when we finish the airport, that's not when we go start asking United and American Airlines if you're interested in coming to, and JetBlue, if you're interested, and Delta, if you're interested in coming and landing Dominica. You kept on speaking about being proactive instead of reactive. Ponder upon that a little more. Who proactive and who reactive now? Mr. Speaker, this issue about foreign, that almost seems to be in a xenophobic manner, we have to be careful with that. Because while I absolute proponent of what's local, buy local, eat local, give our people opportunities and so on. But for me, I'm happy to be a Dominican first, but I'm also pleased to be a global citizen. Because I received most of my education here, and I got some abroad, and I got some of my initial nurturing as a professional out there, Mr. Speaker. And I was able to take that and return to Dominica, so we must be careful about xenophobia. That's all I'm saying on this one, Mr. Speaker. And I recall one time, before I became a parliamentarian, I was in the same industry as someone on the other side. And I recall there was a tender sometime on this huge project, and I tried to get a few local contractors to collaborate, to work together to make a submission. No one responded. And interestingly though, a company who's sometimes classified as foreign but registered in Dominica recruited my services as a consultant to help with the tender. They won that project, Mr. Speaker. They were awarded that project. And I came back and I spoke to Senator, the Honorable Paris. Because while I worked for my money to help this individual company get this project and bid successfully, it hurt me in that our people were not interested in getting together and working together. And I recall what he said to me. It never left my mind. And he said, the challenge is that we won't come together because the people, the various contractors, are not willing to put their business out for each other to see. They don't want me to know how much you are making and how much the other is making and so on. So that's why it's this secrecy. So let's think about that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in sports, I'm hearing that we're doing nothing. Nothing? The government is doing nothing, Mr. Speaker? We are not. We are not doing enough. I want to say the correct thing. I'll give him a break on this one. He's my dear friend, you know. I was in church and I hugged one of his relatives yesterday, so I will leave that one alone. Okay, my brethren. But you know, Mr. Speaker, one I must speak of. I gave him a bye, Honorable Oscar will speak to the issue of sports. But this response as it relates to the duties on tobacco and alcohol, that's concerning what was said in this house, and I must address it. Because, Mr. Speaker, while we have implemented this measure, but it must be known that we are generally guided. Our Prime Minister often says, don't advise yourself. And if we were to refer to Article 6 of the WHO FCTC regulations, it speaks directly and squarely to the issues of price and tax measures to reduce the consumption of alcohol and tobacco, Mr. Speaker. Globally, this has proven to work. And not only that, the expected revenue from this measure is exactly what we're going to use to end towards NCD management. Because with this new nursing structure that you will see, there's a cost to it. And the expectation is that this revenue generated will go directly towards the remuneration of the nurses in the new structure. So that is something, in my view, that is progressive from this health standpoint, Mr. Speaker. So I wanted to clear the air on that. Mr. Speaker, the truth is, on the other side, you will hear many things. Things that they sometimes don't even believe in. Sometimes you will hear that it may lack compassion. That is the truth. Because compassion, Mr. Speaker, is not an accidental occurrence by any means. One cannot reside across the seas in South Sudan and just think about Dominica casually every once in a while. One cannot selectively draw from the verses in the Bible, Mr. Speaker. And out of all the characters and great men and women in the Bible, Mr. Speaker, choose Judas Iscariot to mimic and follow. That is very dangerous, Mr. Speaker. So when I saw my Marigot brethren speaking, and he has his members at his back, I was a little concerned for him. If I were ever seated there, Mr. Speaker, I would stand at the back of them. Never would I allow them to be at the back of me, Mr. Speaker. Dangerous, Mr. Speaker. Very dangerous. Mr. Speaker, compassion is something that is intrinsic, Mr. Speaker. But you know what? Many people on this side have compassion. So they need to sit, they need to watch, and they need to learn. And that is reflected on our side time and time again, and it transcends, it goes all the way up to the head of our policy, the architect of our policy, Mr. Speaker, someone who exhibits and embodies dedication, vision, leadership, and profound care for the people, Mr. Speaker, Dr. the Honorable Roosevelt Skerritt, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, for 24 years, our citizens have placed the absolute trust and confidence in our vision of progress, development, and nation building. We are witnessing the conversion of efforts, the alignment of stars, connecting our dots. That is what we're seeing. And this is why we're seeing these groundbreaking investments in Dominica, in roads, the transformation of digital economy, in agriculture, in healthcare. These initiatives are not just on paper. These are tangible developments that are taking shape, and many, like the marina, the cruise and cargo ports, will be completed quite soon. Mr. Speaker, picture this. A farmer toiling under the sweltering sun, dreaming of a future where his hard work translates to a thriving, sustainable livelihood, with a vision focused on enhancing the agriculture sector, investing in an agro-processing plant, in a feed plant, Mr. Speaker, cutting-edge agriculture technology, a new international airport. We are championing policy actions for people development. Mr. Speaker, I suspect this year I might, well, next year, I might audition for Calypso because when I think about what is going on, I am moved to say that, woy, something happening, Mr. Speaker. And Dominica and CN. Mr. Speaker, that is what is going on in Dominica right now. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, with the development that's going on, my preoccupation as a parent is to see how my people can benefit. That is what I'm preoccupied with. The fisher folks in Mao and Massa and Taru, and the farmers in Campbell and Warner, people like Mayo and Bella, with the dashing and the cocoa in bells. How can we benefit from all these revolutionary transformations and ideas, Mr. Speaker? Because by establishing an agro-processing plant in Dominica, we are creating opportunities for our farmers to add value to the produce, to reduce wastage, Mr. Speaker, to have an opportunity to that when you select and the prime goods go towards shipment that you could use the second tier, what we call reject material for agro-processing. This is what we're about, to reduce on post-harvest losses and secure stable income streams for our farmers and our people. That is what this government is about. Moreover, the developments in an animal feed plant will ensure that we provide our farmers with the much needed and essential resources to help them to have more productive livestock, Mr. Speaker. This is what we are doing. The construction of a new international airport signifies a gateway to global markets for our farmers and our people. This will open doors to export opportunities, to expand their reach beyond our shores right here in Dominica. Mr. Speaker, that is the progress and prosperity that we're working for our people. That is the way that we are responding to the immediate challenges that our people feel. Mr. Speaker, this Labour Party administration stands shoulder to shoulder with our people. We will never let go and never let them down, Mr. Speaker. This is what we're about. We are hardwired to think like this and believe in the people and respond to their issues. Mr. Speaker, imagine a Dominica where the flickering of lights and the buzzing of generators are distant memory. We know the challenges that we have faced. We also know how the government has responded to these challenges time and time again. Mr. Speaker, for far too long, our people have been plagued with these challenges, and we are sensitive towards that. While we have no control of the price of oil and petroleum, the price of fuel, Mr. Speaker, we cannot just sit by idly and accept that this is the reality that our people must face. So we have responded head on, and this is what we are doing in geothermal. We understand our challenges of our people with changes in the environment. While they don't think it's an issue, the sweltering heat, Mr. Speaker, where fan and air conditioned units are no longer luxuries but essential needs. We understand that because we are with the people, Mr. Speaker. We understand the exorbitant prices because we have no control of the prices of fuel. We understand that. And this is why we're implementing this policy action, Mr. Speaker, and more than that. This is why you see that we are moving firmly and squarely, Mr. Speaker, to commence our geothermal. And soon, Mr. Speaker, that will trickle down to every single corner of society. So everyone in Dominica will benefit, Mr. Speaker, from this revolutionary move, Mr. Speaker, towards energy efficiency. Digital economy. Envision a local furniture manufacturer, Mr. Speaker. And when I think of that, one of the very best actually comes from my constituency, Simeon Albert. And those from the East who believes he's from the East, while it might be that, but they say great men come from the East. So they came from the East to the West, okay? So forgive me, Honorable Alfred and Greta and my dear friend, Dr. Williams. But Mr. Speaker, think of skilled craftsmen and women with the passion for creating exquisite pieces of furniture who probably, with the right support systems, the right guidance, they could go big. They could go global, Mr. Speaker. And recently, you would have seen through the Ministry of Public Works, Public Utilities and Digital Economy, they would have issued over 70 grants to people in fields of tech or people requiring money for transformation. $1 million, Mr. Speaker, was allocated to that end, where you had someone like my dear constituent who benefited, who is going to put this money squarely towards the improvement of his business to ensure that he reduces on inefficiencies and then he ensures that he could have a digital showroom and improve the way that he approaches manufacturing, to use electronic means to accept payments from people who are global, to global citizens. There's no need anymore, Mr. Speaker, in his case, to have a showroom, an expensive showroom across the shores of Dominica. Simple click of a mouse on his webpage gives him access to the world, the 8 billion people out there, to access his pieces. So while we may complain and we may have challenges with a small population of 70,000 people, we must never limit ourselves. The world is ours. And I'm happy for him, and I'm happy for all the others who will continue to benefit from this program, Mr. Speaker. This is a game changer for Dominica digital economy, Mr. Speaker. And I really encourage all Dominicans to take this seriously and embrace the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, medicinal marijuana. I heard the member from Marigot speak to that, and I'm happy that he supports that. Let's consider a group of young individuals in Dominica drawn to the cannabis growing industry in pursuit of purpose and opportunity amidst illegality and uncertainty. This is what is going on right now. Despite the risks of prosecution, these youth have turned to cultivation as a means of survival, navigating treacherous paths in pursuit of survival. For some of them, when I interact with them, they say that's what they know. That's how they grew up. That's what sent them to school. In a bold and visionary move, the government has put forth a budget proposing, Mr. Speaker, to engage a legal draftsperson in developing legislation to guide the growth of the medicinal cannabis industry. And this initiative represents true transformation, a different type of thinking where you will have a regularization of this sector to offer economic prospects, but also a sense of belonging, a sense of empowerment to some elements of our society. And not only that, Mr. Speaker, for these young cultivators, they can also be part of the healing process. Because as health minister, I continue to consult with various people with different ailments. And when I speak to citizens who suffer from lupus and cancer, chronic diseases, and other autoimmune diseases, after we have initially met and we've broken the ice, they will say, Minister, this is what helps me. This is what gives me the best results. This is what rids my pain. So it gives these young cultivators an opportunity to be part of that healing process. And that is something that is profoundly positive, and I embrace it. But we must ensure that we have very strict regulations so there won't be misuse. We can't be casual. I'm certainly sensitive to the issues, the spillover effects that may be associated to misuse, or those who make guise to be part of the formal sector, but rarely they have other intentions. So these are the things as parliamentarians that I encourage us to think about carefully as we craft legislation towards moving towards this positive direction. Mr. Speaker, as a first-time elected member of this honorable House, I have the distinct honor and privilege to serve the great people of the Mahu constituency. And over these past few months, Mr. Speaker, together we have embarked on a journey to create more meaningful opportunities for our people. In the last year and a half, we have had a reset agenda to do things differently. And of course, that's expected because as the global situation, economic situation is changing, what you see is that many countries are responding by strengthening their domestic policies, and we are doing just that, Mr. Speaker. We have been impacted too by climate challenges in our constituency and economic transformation, Mr. Speaker. And we have had to adapt. We have had to be innovative in the way we do things, the way we plan things. And we have accomplished quite a bit, even in this challenge.
25 more minutes. 25.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the member be given an additional 15 minutes.
It has been moved and seconded that the Honorable Laville be given an additional 15 minutes. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Honorable Minister, you are given an additional 15 minutes. You may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So we have accomplished, even in this difficult period, Mr. Speaker, a lot in our constituency. And we have seen in this post-Maria period that a lot has happened with our new health center and modern facilities, Mr. Speaker. We have seen a new basketball arena, state-of-the-art, in our constituency, a home for the Blazers, the great Blazers of Massa. Yes, the great Blazers. NBA quality. And Mr. Speaker, we have seen the new school in Mao, and my dear comrade and friend, Blackmore is not here, but I would have asked him to take a bow, Mr. Speaker, because he has in fact set and laid a wonderful foundation, Mr. Speaker, upon which I will continue to build and grow from strength to strength, Mr. Speaker. I want to highlight the work of people like Bernard Lee, Guabe, and Jeff Jeremy Swaz, because what we are doing in our constituency is that we have identified all our vital assets and we are building on that. We are now in a mode, in a time where we're engaging the people, mobilizing the people to capitalize and benefit completely from these investments. And this is why I see Cassie Bruce is trying to copy us with the basketball academy, but we're open to giving them some tips. Okay, Honorable Alfred and Senator Ostel, we can give some tips because we have the largest basketball academy on island, Mr. Speaker, for that age group. And Honorable Grant, your son plays good ball, so you can tell us about that as well too. Yes, Dr. Mark, you should come and watch. Yes, on a Saturday. So, Mr. Speaker, that's what we're doing, and these are grassroots movements. Not movements where we come to the government and say, give me this, give me that to do this. I need this to start an academy. Mr. Speaker, it's all homegrown. That is how we operate, Mr. Speaker, in the Great Mao constituency. We have also what is the largest emergency shelter in our constituency with a capacity of 500. Cassie Bruce is a close second, a little less. But Mr. Speaker, we're very pleased with the people who are part of our St. Paul's Disaster Committee. I know they have a very strong disaster committee as well, so we are taking tips from you all on this one. But we have put together, a quite capable team. So that is why last year, when we had to respond to Tropical Storm Brett, we were able to meet and consult very quickly and, transport at least 30 people to our facility. It's a pleasure to have people like, Marshall Alexander in our constituency, someone who is not formally part of the disaster committee, but does not miss an opportunity to give us updates, PowerPoint presentation, no matter where or when we call him. And that's how we are able to mobilize resources at the local level to benefit from the talent and the skills of our people. Mr. Speaker, we have had quite a few village festivals in our community. We just concluded the great Fete Center and Fete Mahu in our community, and I really want to thank all the patrons, everybody who came out and supported the people. I had a chance to speak to many of the vendors, and they did make money, so I feel happy for them. I feel pleased, and from all reports, it went well. From what I saw and what I experienced myself, it was a good environment, good ambience. And we continue to do so by supporting, our heritage, our traditions like carnival and so on, our village feasts. So we continue to do that. Mr. Speaker, hopefully, maybe when I come here again in this venerable chamber, I may move a motion, Mr. Speaker, to declare Mau as the domino capital of Dominica. Because since Father's Day, we have had 3 tournaments and competitions, and I'm telling you, it's big. People are thanking us all over that we are allowing other communities to participate, but we don't put too many outsiders in our groups, Mr. Speaker, because we want to keep the money at home, okay? The prize money. So, but we appreciate that engagement from many of my fellow colleagues who have their constituents forming part of our team. So I'm grateful for that. Mr. Speaker, the expansion of the NEP in Dominica is something that we have seen, and it is something that I'm saddened when this program is attacked, because I've seen the transformation, particularly in my constituency, for vulnerable people, the women, and some young people, Mr. Speaker. I have seen that these people have livelihoods and are able to sustain and to build their families and give their children a fighting chance at survival, to have a better start than they did, Mr. Speaker. So I embrace this program wholeheartedly, Mr. Speaker. And our NEPs in our constituency are some of the closest people to me. These are some of the most genuine individuals that you will ever find and come to know in Dominica, Mr. Speaker. And this is why our Dominica Labour Party administration will always stand shoulder to shoulder with them and grow the NEP from strength to strength and create more opportunities for them to graduate into even more sustainable means. And we will, wherever possible, absorb them into the central system, government system, Mr. Speaker, wherever we see that they are qualified and they're experienced, Mr. Speaker. So these are my genuine thoughts about this program, and we're just happy to have them in Mau. Mr. Speaker, I want to express my sincere gratitude on behalf of the people of Mau. They've asked me to say thank you for lighting the playing field at Teaser, because right now this gives us a chance. The soccer strikers have moved on from last year to the Premier League, and we now have a chance, an opportunity to practice on the lights after a long work day. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, you can just imagine teams going to Premier League, big leagues with no practice. We're able to improve on our skills and nurture our talents. And we are really not doing too badly in Premier for the first time. We're doing well. Proud of the guys, Mr. Speaker. And our soccer strikers also playing at this very high level. So maybe sometime, with your permission, I can maybe move a motion to make Mau the second football capital in Dominica. I will not say where is likely the first, okay? But Mr. Speaker, on a somber note, while we are on football, the St. Paul Academy in Mau constituency, Mr. Speaker, is growing from strength to strength. My children don't play basketball. Instead, they're in football academy. And we're seeing how I am trying to wonder if we need a much bigger field now and even bigger facilities, because we almost have no space to put children in the academy. And I just want to acknowledge people like Kenny Fish Esprit and Shane Marshall who are behind this, Mr. Speaker. And on a somber note, I wish to express my sincerest and most profound condolences to Shane and Roy, who was a national cricketer, and the sudden passing of their dear mother, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we understand that there are many things that need to be attended, and we are cognizant of that. We understand clearly that in areas like Taru, we do not have a public building to even host our community meetings. We understand, and these are things on our agenda. These are things we talk about. We understand that Campbell continues to be vulnerable, and this is why we have responded with swift action to acquire 4 acres of land for the people in Campbell. We have acquired that in Warner, and we're working very closely with the Ministry of Housing in speaking to the people and understanding the new housing dynamics and needs and so on for Campbell, Mr. Speaker. And we assure people that we will continue to respond to their needs in Campbell, Mr. Speaker. So we are aware and we are sensitive to that. We also understand the challenges in Live Park as well, that for the most part, this can be deemed a squatter community. And because of how we feel, the genuine love and consideration that we have for people as people who subscribe to the profound beliefs of labor, we know why it's important for people to own their lands and to be regularized. So I want to thank in a sincere way the Minister for Housing for working swiftly to address the issues of regularization of our good friends in Live Park. Thank you, Madam Minister. I understand that in Warner, we have some challenges sometimes with the fact that we don't have representation at the local government level, and the associated issues with planning of events, even like village feast and simple matters, Mr. Speaker. We understand, and this is why I wish to thank in a sincere way my dear friend and colleague, the member for Grand Fork, Rivière Syriac, Honorable Greta Roberts, for moving swiftly to have his staff meet with our people in Warner and to start the engagement to look at the possibility of starting a village council. So they're doing that reconnaissance at this point. So I'm grateful to you also, Madam Minister. I'm comforted that the road edge failure has been addressed. Thank you, Honorable Grant. And that is in the, I hear you are calling it many names, but Lawi Pikati is the right name, okay? Lawi Pikati, all right? So I'm grateful for that. And while we understood the engineering challenge in this area, and while we had been patient for a while in waiting to have this designed properly and adequately, but there always existed a serious safety issue, and we're just happy and we're grateful that this could be addressed. And these walls, while we take them for granted, you can only see from the road the top of the wall, just about 1 meter. But to imagine, Mr. Speaker, the thousands in some cases and millions in some cases of infrastructure that is not even seen to the eye, that is the type of development and challenge that we face as a government here in Dominica because of our landscape, because of our terrain. These are the challenges. Mr. Speaker, we understand that there are other vulnerabilities along our road network in the community. And because of where we are located in Dominica, that many parts of the constituency are in fact main roads. And I'm happy that the conversation has started with the Ministry of Public Works to address some of these other issues in Roger and Campbell and so on, Mr. Speaker. I'm grateful for that. Following town hall meetings with our people, we have heard from them. They expressing the need for traffic calming devices. So Ministry of Public Works went ahead and constructed a few speed bumps for us as well. So we're grateful for that. They have responded. But while this can be seen as a traffic calming device, I also wish to ask motorists to be more considerate and compassionate when you're passing through constituencies like Mao and Roseau South and Soufriere, Point Michel, and so on, where our homes are pretty much along the road, occupying 2 of the 3 of the original Queen's chains, Mr. Speaker. Be considerate that our people in Taru, our children, have to cross the streets every day to go to ITSS or to school in Mahu. So while we may need other speed bumps, I think we need to reflect profoundly on our attitude and our approach towards life, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we'll continue in our community in arts, in culture, and so on, in the utilization of some buildings that we have in our community that exist to ensure that we create centers of arts by not going to the government and asking for a center of arts, but using spaces we already have. So in one case, We have box guitars. We have acoustic guitars, Mr. Speaker, that we're going to commence training with our people. These are things that we're doing by coordinating and collaborating with our people here and in the diaspora who are passionate about things that are Mahu constituency, Mr. Speaker. This is what we are doing. Mr. Speaker, our commitment to enhancing the infrastructure in our constituency, particularly along the shoreline, is something that we take very seriously. And this is why we've been collaborating with ODM to have campaigns for sensitization for our fishers along the coast. And also too, from speaking to the Minister of Agriculture and Minister responsible for fisheries, in a meeting last week, we've had that commitment that by August 15th, Mr. Speaker, we will finally see, in 3 weeks' time, Mr. Speaker, we will see that contract signed to commence work to rehabilitate our fish landing site. And Mr. Speaker, not only that, while there is focus on fish landing and so on, but we continue to invest in our people. And that's why I'm profoundly grateful for the work by the Agricultural Livelihoods Project to invest in our people. Because when we have Robert Dublin from Massac being trained, receiving specialized training from a naval architect to improve his skills in boat building, I feel grateful that it's one of our own benefiting from such a wonderful program. So I'm asking that our young people from Massac can learn from Robert, work with him as he moves to build boats for fisher folks around Dominica. So there are job opportunities, especially skilled people and job opportunities. So I'm hoping that they can embrace these opportunities. Mr. Speaker, we have our digital economy hub or innovation hub in our community. So government has its part, but we as a people, we have our part. And I will say that I was disappointed that last summer, while we moved ahead to have a program, we did not fill all the seats during our summer program where these young children were afforded the opportunity to be trained to be programmers and website builders. And when I visited the hub in Canefield, I saw a young man, 9 years old, Mr. Speaker, and he had a website built where he was selling shoes. Well, in fact, he did not start a business, but he pretty much had the template built and set up to sell his shoes. And these are skills that are available in all the hubs around Dominica. So I'm asking people to work with us as a government while we create the environment for progress and prosperity. We have to embrace it. We have to make it our own. That is how we're going to see the intrinsic benefits of these ideas and ideals of this government. That is how we're going to see the manifestation of what is purported by the member from Marigot to be a paper exercise, to be real life-changing opportunities. We are doing our part. And it's our job as power reps to, instead of complaining, to go to our people and sensitize them and teach them and tell them about the opportunities that are there for them. Tell them what the digital economy has to offer. Why is it that you may not have one person from your constituency benefiting from the grant? It's not because Labour don't like you. Maybe you were not interested in knowing what this program was about. So you didn't have an opportunity to share with your constituents the benefits of this program. That is what it is about. We can't just say we don't get, we don't get, we don't get. Are we really paying attention? That's the question. And are we there for the right thing to represent and champion for the people? These are the questions we have to ask ourselves. Mr. Speaker, there are many more things I would like to say about our great Mao constituency. But I will stop with the saying and focus more on the doing. So when I'm over here, I'll be back to our constituency to continue the great work that we have started. Ministry of Health, Wellness, and Social Services. Mr. Speaker, health is like a
20
crown.
more minutes.
I'm sorry?
20 more minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm okay for now. Mr. Speaker, health is like the crown that the healthy wear, but only the sick will value it. Amit Kalantri. Mr. Speaker, I'm honored and humbled by the privilege of guiding this Ministry of Health, Wellness, and Social Services. I get it. I understand the profound need for a healthy nation, healthy communities, healthy homes, and healthy people. I understand that people need to be resilient in order for us to have and to support the productive sector. I get it. Mr. Speaker, primary health care provides, through a network of 49 health and wellness centers, primary health care for people in Dominica. And I must comment on the hard work that our people in primary health care are doing. Because last year, Mr. Speaker, a total of 51,782 visits to health centers were recorded. 2,433 clinics were held, 300 health promotion activities, 1,709 antenatal clinics attendances, 726 home visits. Although these statistics are noteworthy, Mr. Speaker, our goal is not merely to see numbers and repeat numbers, but instead to continue to utilize the services that we have, to continue to work to develop and improve the health outcomes and personal circumstances of our people. And Mr. Speaker, while I'm on primary health care, I must speak to vaccination, because this is something that has worked for us for a long time in Dominica. So when we complain, we sometimes have to ask ourselves in the same way, what is my personal responsibility towards my own health? And due to misconceptions, particularly associated with COVID vaccines, there's been a low uptake of vaccines, Mr. Speaker. And we have seen that in our programs, we have reduced to about 70%, when in the past, we have enjoyed 90% and above vaccination rates in Dominica. So these are some of the issues we have to address. And instead, that in some cases where we have nurses arranging clinics and so on for vaccination, we have babies who would have received one shot and would not, and the mothers or fathers would not take them for the second dose. For whatever reason, you find doctors, nurses waiting, and we so-called ghost them. We never show up. Instead, you can imagine the value, Mr. Speaker, of just asking them the right questions and clarifying, Mr. Speaker, whatever doubts or challenges or notions that you may have. So this is the type of spirit of engagement that I'm encouraging, because we know that vaccination has worked for us in Dominica. The HATS program. Mr. Speaker, we recognize the need to improve the standard of care in Dominica. We have approved the clinical pathway for the HATS initiative. And this is an initiative in the Americas where local stakeholders and corporations, they come together and provide technical advice, Mr. Speaker, to us. And actually, that's an initiative that really started from PAHO. And it is now our institutionalized model of care for cardiovascular risk management in Dominica and in parts of the Americas sub-region. And with special emphasis on control of hypertension and secondary prevention in primary health care in the Americas, Mr. Speaker, this is the type of model that we wish to replicate in other areas of care. And several district medical officers have completed a HATS training program in Dominica. They have followed all the coursework. And in addition to that, we have been able to calibrate and standardize all of our equipment that are being used in the HATS program, to include blood pressure monitors, Mr. Speakers, and others. So we're grateful for the support, and we know that we'll go a long way in managing the NCD challenges that we have here in Dominica. We recognize that with all these changes, the updates, the new technology, the new science and updated science, we recognize the need for continuous training of our people in the ministry. So we value training, and we constantly ensure that we provide that opportunity to our people for training. So for example, foot care initiative, it remains a priority for us across all districts, and we have established a framework for foot care in primary health care. And this program was most recently boosted by a 3-day workshop, and that started in November of last year. Just last month, the staff of the Granby and Casa Grove health districts benefited from a training opportunity where they were able to improve their skills to strengthen essential steps involved in resuscitating newborns from birth to the first 60 minutes of their lives, Mr. Speaker. That is what we are engaged in primary health care. Mr. Speaker, a workshop was facilitated by PAHO in May on the Health Emergency Operations Center. A total of 30 of our various firefighters and district medical officers and police were exposed to this wonderful training opportunity. And we also had, following that, a group of 14 health professionals visiting Grenada for rapid response team and incidents command structure training. So we're happy for these opportunities. And we have many more that are ongoing. Even very soon, we will have a team coming from the People's Republic of China who will be here to help us with MRI training. So that is something that we absolutely welcome and we embrace. Mr. Speaker, we have recognized that while services are essential and easily accessible at health centers to many, for the hardworking public officers that I see behind me, and I take no offense that many of you all are women, unlike my colleague on the other side, because when I look at the permanent secretaries here, I see 2 males there, but the women that I see behind me, these are highly qualified, highly skilled, extremely competent Dominicans who could have chosen to be anywhere else. Karen Prevost, and the FS, and P.S. White, and P.S. Gloria, and P.S. Valmont, and Dr. Kira Paul. These are people who could have chosen anywhere, but they chose Dominica, and we are attacking them for being female because we are trying to make space for males. What is this about? Mr. Speaker, let me get back to health, Mr. Speaker. So while these hard-working public officers are working towards the best interests of Dominica and Dominicans, Mr. Speaker, we recognize sometimes they may have a hard time accessing health centers because they're at work. And there are many others just like them. But what we have seen and what we are concerned about is that in our health clinics throughout the year, we have seen 381 public officers through various clinics, 15 of which had to be referred, Mr. Speaker, to various health centers around Dominica, particularly the one in Focolé. And we're seeing that too many of our public officers, when we check their BMI, Mr. Speaker, we are seeing signs of obesity in some cases or some being overweight. And we are in fact concerned. And I'm saying that, Mr. Speaker, and certainly I'm not referencing PSCs at all, I'm speaking broadly. But the concern is not to put the business of public officers out there. But the true and deep concern is that this might just be a pool, a microcosm of what is really going on out there in Dominica, to show how deep and how widespread the NCD challenge might be for us in Dominica. So, Mr. Speaker, I know that Minister for Governance, Honorable Prime Minister, is looking at the numbers. And we're seeing more and more public officers, and it happens in private sector, have to be absent from work because they're required to be on sick leave, Mr. Speaker. And of course, that is affecting productivity of our people. But while we are concerned about productivity, we're even more concerned for their own livelihoods, Mr. Speaker. And we wish to continue this year to continue to work closely with them and provide avenues and opportunities to address these challenges. Mr. Speaker, permit me for a moment to draw attention to a few areas that continue to provide essential services within the healthcare sector. We have heard that pharmacy and CMS being under scrutiny for some time. You heard some pseudo numbers and made up math earlier in terms of what's available, what's not, and so on. But I'll give you the numbers, Mr. Speaker. And it's not my numbers. During the fiscal year, the pharmacy department has been able to finalize national medicine list. This is positive. We've been able to update the family nurse practitioner prescribing list, Mr. Speaker. And we've been able to conduct a review of the national pharmaceutical policy. That is completed, and the recommendation will be made soon for possible implementation. Mr. Speaker, in an effort to regulate the functions of pharmacies across Dominica, we'll soon introduce the pharmacy bill. Mr. Speaker, the pharmacy unit works closely with central medical stores in Dominica, providing pharmaceutical needs to the populace. CMS can outline several, Mr. Speaker, success stories. So when it is being said that we don't have anti-hypertensive medicine, and the following day we're able to go to CMS and see boxes upon boxes of 11 families, 11 categories of anti-hypertensive medication, Mr. Speaker, I will tell the public the reality, Mr. Speaker. We must stop making a pebble seem like a mountain, Mr. Speaker. And that is why the Prime Minister always says we must look at the glass half full. You will hear the numbers. Mr. Speaker, we have seen the augmented usage of the electronic management inventory system, which was initiated last year. The software application is known as Open Boxes, and in-service training has been completed. At present, all primary healthcare services and hospital authority requisitions and processes are managed through our electronic system. We extend our sincere gratitude to OECS PPS, Mr. Speaker, for their consultancy and training and technical support. During the last fiscal year, Mr. Speaker, several upgrades have been made to CMS, and we'd like to thank our partners like PAHO for providing air-conditioned units. And you know, that is required to ensure that we keep our medicines at the best quality. We're also grateful for them for the donation of a refrigerated truck to help assist us with our cold chain. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, from February to March of this year, CMS received training from OECS PPS with management, Mr. Speaker. And I make reference to OECS PPS because they conducted an assessment recently. They looked at 7 indicators in terms of our management, and we were successful. And not only that, excelled in 6 of the 7 indicators, Mr. Speaker. And while we continue to make strides, we are hopeful that next year I can come to this honorable house and report that we will be successful in all 7 indicators. And Mr. Speaker, let's go to the numbers. To highlight a few areas in relation to the availability of supplies, the benchmark for ease of reference, the passing grade, is 85% from OECS PPS. Last year, we achieved 80%, but this year, we achieved 90%. Also notable is that in the area of out-of-stock supplies, OECS PPS indicates that there should be no more than 3% of supplies out of stock. Last year, we recorded 9%. This year, we recorded 3%. As it refers to the general service level, the passing mark is 85%. In 2003, we recorded 35%. But this year, we were able to double our efforts to 70%. So, Mr. Speaker, while 35% is a poor grade, we are not hiding numbers, we are not cooking the books. We are presenting it to you real, in your face. But to show instead a story that we are not just sitting on our laurels, but we are working every day for the improvement of our healthcare system, Mr. Speaker. We accept our realities. We accept the challenges, the tall order, Mr. Speaker, but we continue to make moves every single day in the interest of our Dominican people. Mr. Speaker, when assessing antihypertensive and anti-diabetic service levels, Mr. Speaker, the benchmark is 85% or greater. Last year, we were rated at 47. This year, we are rated 83, Mr. Speaker. I believe this is remarkable, and it speaks to the staff of the CMS and the remarkable work ethic of the people at the Ministry of Health. Mr. Speaker, this tells a story that if, say, I am someone accessing medicine, pharmaceuticals from CMS, that while we have tried hard to make a mountain, a pebble, seem like a mountain. The reality is that over the past year, what we have seen was that 97 times when someone would try to access essential medicines, they would have it. 97 out of 100. And only 3 times out of the 100 that it may not be available. And in many cases, it is on the way. That's the reality. Mr. Speaker, our Health Information Unit is another important component. They're the one who keep records, Mr. Speaker, and monitor disease patterns and occurrences in Dominica, and that is important. And they have, for the very first time, completed an annual report for us, Mr. Speaker, and we have the numbers. For infant mortality, infants year and under, for 2002, the rate is 10.7 per 100 live births. It was the second lowest in the OECS countries in that year, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, while we seek towards 0, that is the goal out of 100, Mr. Speaker. While we try to destroy, or like they say, quasi our country, Mr. Speaker, we are not the worst. We are trying to improve. We must not spit on our country and on the remarkable gains that we have made. And when I speak to the neonates, 0 to 27 days, Mr. Speaker, mortality rate for 2022 is close 7.6 out of every 100 live births, second again in the OECS. We have seen that in this fiscal year, we have had to challenge and deal with dengue and hand, foot, and mouth disease outbreaks. And we've been able, Mr. Speaker, in a very quick way to address these issues, Mr. Speaker. And I'm happy to report that there were no fatalities associated, Mr. Speaker, with these 2 outbreaks. And I'm very pleased with the wonderful staff of Environmental Health and Health Promotion Unit for managing these outbreaks, Mr. Speaker. These are the positives. Dominica Hospital Authority. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I'm grateful for the hospital that we have, Mr. Speaker. I must place that on record. This is where most of us were born, Mr. Speaker. This is a hospital that, if we're honest with ourselves, we have seen it transformed right before our very eyes, Mr. Speaker. And we're aware that we have to continue to build on it and continue to invest. And we're ready, we're prepared to continue to do just that. And they have made many gains, Mr. Speaker, despite a few challenges that they have in certain areas, like nursing shortages and, Department of Radiology. Because it's hard, the truth is, it is hard to get a radiographer or a radiologist anywhere, Mr. Speaker, no matter how much you pay. It's one of those professions that's in demand. That's the truth. It's almost like auction, the highest bidder, to get a good radiologist, Mr. Speaker. That is the reality, Mr. Speaker. But we continue to do the best and use technology wherever we can, like to use telemedicine in many cases and teleradiology, Mr. Speaker. So we have been doing that. And the Dominica China Friendship Hospital and Marigot, they've also seen some numbers and flows through their doors. At Dominica China Friendship Hospital, we have treated 6,201 inpatients across 8 units this year, Mr. Speaker. The average length of stay of every patient, and that exclude patients at APU, where the stay tends to be longer, is 8.3 days per patient. Outpatient department, this provides for 22 specialized and subspecialist areas, Mr. Speaker. We have recorded 11,644 visits. A total of 1,528 surgical cases were handled, Mr. Speaker. While in the A&E, last year, we recorded an alarming 23,060 patients through our A&E. Mr. Speaker, this is very concerning. Because while this year we would see...
One more minute.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I move that the member be allotted an additional 20 minutes. Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that the Honorable Minister be given an additional 20 minutes. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Honorable Minister, you are given an additional 20 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I'm grateful to this honorable house, Mr. Speaker, to this parliament, because the people want to know. And I want to tell the people, Mr. Speaker. Facts, Mr. Speaker, facts. And I hope you all will help the facts to go viral. That is what we need to do. Mr. Speaker, in 2023, we welcome a full-time neurosurgeon on our team, Mr. Speaker. That is something to celebrate. And interestingly, that is such a wonderful story. So while this neurosurgeon was born in Cuba, she's actually of Dominican heritage. And this is someone who was always identified with her roots of her homeland and chose to come to Dominica instead of going to Spain, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, not only that, but you're seeing profound changes and advancements by the clinical support that she's providing at our hospital, Mr. Speaker. And that's why we've been able to see groundbreaking surgeries occurring at our hospital, where a young man had an accident, fell from a building, cracked skull, and through surgical interventions, Mr. Speaker, was able to remove the skull fragments lodged, embedded in his brain. And after asking one question, after he woke up, they tested him, Mr. Speaker, and asked him for his passcode to his phone, Mr. Speaker. His phone was successfully unlocked. That is what is going on at the Dominica China Friendship Hospital, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there was also a notable achievement that occurred in July 13th of this year, and it brings to me great joy to announce it here in this venerable chamber, that medical history was made in Dominica on that sacred day, Mr. Speaker. Because with the support of the World Pediatric Program, a multidisciplinary clinical team, including a pediatric surgeon from St. Vincent, our own neurosurgeon, our own anesthesiologist, our own neonatologist, our own pediatrician, Mr. Speaker, and our own supporting surgical staff, Mr. Speaker, successfully performed the placement of a shunt for an infant born at 28 weeks plus 5 days. Mr. Speaker, in simpler terms, Mr. Speaker, we were able to perform a highly intricate and invasive brain surgery on a premature baby to remove fluid from the cavities deep within his brain. Mr. Speaker, a comparison of hospital statistics shows notable decline in our overseas transfers for vascular and neurosurgical cases. That decreased by 38% from 21 transfers in 2022 to 13 cases in 2023, Mr. Speaker. And this most certainly reflects the improved capabilities and the growing confidence in our local healthcare services. Mr. Speaker, our neonatal unit at the Dominica China Friendship Hospital has been hosting graduation ceremonies annually. I think that's the only one the Minister of Education does not go to. Because, Mr. Speaker, in 2023, 13 neonates graduated, my dear friend. 13 neonates graduated, Mr. Speaker. And we actually had a valedictorian who was a 25-weeker. Never before have we had 25-weekers being alive in Dominica, Mr. Speaker, and living healthy and productive lives. The staff at the NICU are now looking forward to celebrating other graduations where we will be having our 25 to 29-weekers attending the graduation ceremony with the cap and the gown, Mr. Speakers. I would like to extend deepest commendations to the staff at the NICU. Their job is not an easy one. It can never be easy tending to and caring for the smallest and most vulnerable among us, Mr. Speaker. It's a highly stressful environment. I go to this department, Mr. Speaker, and I see Dr. David and Dr. Vidal, Mr. Speaker, feeling that deep compassion like it's their own child, Mr. Speaker. These are the people that we have working for us and they're delivering the best care outcomes, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of our people of Dominica. And we must embrace that. We must be happy for that. And we must not criticize day in, day on, out because of that 1%. We must be careful. Mr. Speaker, our vascular surgeon. Vascular surgeon, someone that I went to school, and angiologist also. Someone I went to school with, someone from my constituency, Dr. Abel, Alison Abel, Mr. Speaker. We recognize, Mr. Speaker, the high prevalence of non-communicable diseases in Dominica. And we are happy to have our vascular surgeon now with us, Mr. Speaker. So she's able to help us with many interventions that otherwise we would have had to send our people to other countries, St. Lucia, Trinidad, Martinique, Guadeloupe. She's now able to do that, Mr. Speaker. So we're happy to have her. These are the people we're attracting back to our shores. The Dominican dream is alive. And as a government, we will continue to nurture that dream for our young people. Mr. Speaker, World Pediatric Program, our commitment to improving care outcomes for people in Dominica extends merely beyond what we do at Dominica China Friendship Hospital and other care institutions. So annually, the government contributes to this program, Mr. Speaker, where we have many of our children attend various clinics or accessing specialized surgical interventions in different parts, in some hospitals in the Caribbean and even in the United States, Mr. Speaker. I have seen the transformation of lives. I have one of my young constituents from Jimmy who is able to walk properly, Mr. Speaker, because of an early intervention, Mr. Speaker. So we are in fact doing a lot. And not only that, Mr. Speaker, because of the transformation that we are having and we're witnessing in our healthcare system here in Dominica, now, Mr. Speaker, Dominica has become an option for performing some of these surgeries, Mr. Speaker, that we would have otherwise exported, Mr. Speaker. So we are grateful for WPP for accepting to partner with us for that option. Mr. Speaker, dialysis, it's a unit that is sometimes seen to be in the vineyard or even forgotten, but I need to highlight them today, Mr. Speaker. We have about 32 dialysis patients on island. Generally, what we see is that the survival of the patients can be from 5 to 10 years, thereabout. But Mr. Speaker, and that's based on various health circumstances. But what we've seen, we have a man from Portsmouth, Mr. Speaker, who's been accessing dialysis, Mr. Speaker, at the hospital for the past 24 years, beating all odds, Mr. Speaker, and is in good health, to the point where most recently when he and I met, he gave me an embrace and he said to me, he said, "Minister, you nearly called me in Barbados for an interview." So even Barbados is interested in this success story, in his story. We must be happy and proud for what we have, Mr. Speaker. It's like my dear friend, a sanitary engineer from my constituency would say, "You don't like the Americans, but you like the biscuit," Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in ICARE in Dominica, the Brenda Strafford Foundation, they continue to walk shoulder to shoulder with us, and we're grateful for their help. Of note, 5,090 patients were seen and operated on in the eye center in the last fiscal year. Over 5,000, okay? But what is notable also is that I must underscore that 2,262 patients were no-shows for their appointment. and this severely disrupts the delivery of care for other patients who really need to access the care. So while we sometimes complain that there are long wait times to access eye care, this is one of the factors that causes a lot of problems for us with scheduling. But Mr. Speaker, I don't even think there is need from me to boast of the wonderful and miraculous work that happens at our eye center, Mr. Speaker, because that's already done, and I draw your attention to the recent testimonial of the former parliamentary representative for the Roseau North constituency, who highly praised the exceptional services and the delivery of care at our Dominica China Friendship Hospital and our eye center, Mr. Speaker. This was a testimony of the great work, the miraculous work that is ongoing at this hospital. And that is why sometimes people come to me when they hear me speak in defense of health and when I say the truth. But what we must all understand is when we speak ill of our health system, when we speak untruths about our health system, someone may just believe you. And what you're in fact doing is depriving them of that miracle in their life. We must be careful. Mr. Speaker, because the government believes in continuing to invest in healthcare in Dominica, we have continued this year by making quite a few capital investments. So I recall there was a leak of a wash machine at the hospital after the engineering department worked all night to repair this, and there was a slow leak at the end, and someone decided that the best thing they could do after having seen their colleagues working hard all night, where their manager bought meals for them on his own money to ensure that you get your staff to fix this, someone decides in their best wisdom to make a video and get it to go viral because of a leak, Mr. Speaker, because of a leak. While it was eventually repaired, Mr. Speaker, we moved further than that. And that is why I'm grateful to the Ministry of Finance for allowing and affording us the opportunity for $140,000 to replace the washers and dryers. And it is not those you have by Courts and other places in Dominica. It comes from far, they are commercial. And you will not hear about the steam sterilizer that we now have for $225,000 US, and yes, I'm quoting US. And you will not hear about the 2 ultrasongs for $152,000. And you may not hear about the operating room tables for $200,000 US. And you will not hear of the investments of $5,000 US for the neurosurgery clamp. A clamp in carpentry, the clamp might be $50,000. Anytime you print the word health on anything, it is times 100. That is how it works in that business. And thank you sincerely, FS. Thank you sincerely, Dr. Ma, and our dear Prime Minister for continuing to support us with our capital investments and capital projects. So I'm asking, please help this go viral. Mr. Speaker, you have a hardworking engineering team at the hospital responding to 1,402 work orders. These are people behind the scenes, working closely with our PIU. People like Mr. Henderson and Vaughan, Blaise, and Castle, and Robin, and Fontaine at the hospital, and so many of the other carpenters. Behind the scenes. I went to visit the MRI recently, Mr. Speaker, only to realize that there's a room behind the MRI that is almost twice the size of the room where the MRI is in, Mr. Speaker. This is the back-end work. And we try to purport Dominica as a place where you can't realize your dreams. Don't we think it's electrical engineers and mechanical engineers and biomedical engineers who are operating these, Mr. Speaker? Leave me in my Dominica, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, As we speak to oxygen, we've had right now a refurbishment of our oxygen plant, and we do manufacture about 9,800 cylinders annually, and we'll continue to do so. And we're grateful for the support that we have gotten so far with Build Health International and Direct Relief, who have been supporting us to provide oxygen, to provide life to our people of Dominica. And we're also grateful for the donation that was made of $76,000 for a neonatal ventilator as well, and the support through a grant that we will likely get for $250,000 for solar panels, Mr. Speaker. And we're grateful for POW for the generous contributions that they have been making, and to the Sifokol Alumni Association for the donation of 2 dialysis machines and 6 dialysis chairs. So we're grateful to all of our partners and our stakeholders, Mr. Speaker. There are quite a few firsts in Dominica, and we must be grateful. But Mr. Speaker, I know time is against me. I have asked for a lot, and I have gotten a lot, and I want to be fair, but I must draw some focus to APU. I wish to address a subject that is of deep concern. It's mental health, and this is one of the reasons why we changed the name of the ministry to merely health to health and wellness. The acute psychiatry unit, APU, admits 38 to 40 patients monthly, the majority being males. However, in recent years in the APU, we have seen an increase in females with mental health challenges. In 2023, 2024, the 2 major reasons for APU admission were attempted suicide and substance-induced disorders. There was a total of 11 patients admitted from January to December 2023 for attempted suicide, Mr. Speaker. From January to July 2024, there was a total of 10 patients admitted for suicidal tendencies. There was a total of 15 teenagers admitted from January to December of 2023 for substance abuse disorders. Mr. Speaker, all were males, and the age range from 16 to 19. And there was a total of 8 patients admitted from January to July of 2024. Mr. Speaker, males ranging from 14 to 20 years old. Of concerns for us, teenagers admitted with substance abuse disorders and adolescent females who have attempted suicides. There's been a notable increase thus far from 2023 to 2024 in the number of persons admitted to the APU who have attempted suicide, from 11 in all in 2023 to 10 in only the first half of 2024. The main cause of attempted suicide by females, based on the assessment in child sex abuse, while the main cause of substance-induced disorders among males is due to drug use. Again, unfortunately, we have observed an increase in the depression leading to suicide and attempted suicide, Mr. Speaker. And this seems to be a growing trend, Mr. Speaker, that we must curb right now. There is a call, Mr. Speaker, for immediate action as it relates to mental health. But it cannot be done by the doctors alone and the clinicians alone. There is a role for us. There's a role for the people in your families, in your own home and work environments, to pay attention to expressions of sadness, of depression, of hopelessness and helplessness, the lack of interest in anything, Mr. Speaker. So we'll continue to work, Mr. Speaker, and take serious and urgent action in the area of mental health. Mr. Speaker, this last one is for Marigot Hospital, which is very important. In keeping with the government's policy of providing affordable and equitable healthcare access, we have in fact constructed the over $30 million Marigot Hospital, Mr. Speaker. And while we have opened on a phased approach from 11th September 2023, Mr. Speaker, the expectation is that this hospital would serve at least 10% of the population. And in the first phase, to offer services in urgent care, specialized outpatient clinics supported by X-ray, pharmacy, and basic lab services. Mr. Speaker, the outpatient clinics are led by experienced medical consultants who make the effort time and time again to be available to the people of the North. But I wish to bring into focus, Mr. Speaker, that since the hospital began offering services, a total of 351 visits have been documented, Mr. Speaker, across 9 various specialties. 351. However, on the contrary, urgent care, 3,114 visits, Mr. Speaker. And this is very sad because when you have surgeons and orthopedic surgeons like Dr. Julian, who makes the effort, who could have seen hundreds of patients in Roseau, and makes the effort to go to Marigot, and despite all efforts from the ministry, we may need your help, Mr. Palrep, because it is not satisfactory that Dr. Julian sees only one patient.
One more minute.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, we will continue to invest in Marigot Hospital, but we are pleading with the people to continue to justify the need to open all the services, because we must accept that there's a scarcity of resources all around the world, Mr. Speaker. We are aware of the attrition issues and the challenges that we have in Dominica. We must access the care. It's not when you're absolutely vulnerable or when you're in an accident, that is when you should think of the hospital. We need to access the outpatient services. So I implore your help in that regard. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I wish to thank all our partners, wish to thank the good people of the Republic of Cuba as well as the People's Republic of China who have supported us, Mr. Speaker, human resource areas and to fulfill those needs, and with equipment and telemedicine, Mr. Speaker, and so many other areas. These are the people, Mr. Speakers, who work closely with us. I've mentioned the other partners like PAO, WHO. Mr. Speaker, for the past year, we've had the pleasure and privilege from PAO to have them assign an experienced consultant in the person of Dr. Bess to work with us very closely, Mr. Speaker. And while he has departed now to do the very same good work in Bahamas, I wish him the very best. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for your indulgence. I thank you sincerely. I know I don't have enough time to tell you of the profound milestones and achievements that we have made, but I thank God that Honorable Dr. Roosevelt Skerritt has allowed me and given me the privilege to work with Dr. Cassandra Williams and our esteemed pharmacist and PALSEC, Ken Edwards. We will continue to tell you about the glorious works and deeds that are occurring in the Ministry of Health, Wellness, and Social Services. Mr. Speaker, thank you. I thank you, this Parliament, for the extra time and for your indulgence. May God sincerely and profoundly bless you.